Hey folks, today we're going to cover Dev Diary 180, and this one is called How a Crown is Earned, and this is for the new Crusader Kings 3 content, Coronations, which is the next event pack that we're getting. We have had some information around this in previous Dev Diaries, but today they're going to talk us through how this content works. They're also going to show us what happens if you're a vassal, if you're not the actual person getting crowned, and then at the end they're going to talk about the oath system, how that works, what kind of rewards you get. I will say there are some spicy rewards for it, so do stick around for that. But let's get straight into it. As I said at the beginning here, they're going to talk us through the story of the King of Scotland, and as you can see in this screenshot, he doesn't have a crown, so obviously he hasn't been crowned yet. So you don't get to wear your nice crown, you've got to go and actually get crowned by somebody. So as you can see, he's 16 years old, he's the King of Scotland, he's got a wife here, he is a tribute of the King of England, as it always should be. And then as you can see here, if you are in this state where you're not crowned, you don't have the legitimacy of being crowned, you get this notification in the situation panel saying that you've not yet held a coronation, reminding you to do this if you have the DLC. Obviously, if you don't have the DLC, you won't see this, but you know, it does give you this little bump here. Do make sure to get crowned. You've got a bunch of other things you're going to be doing, but do get this out of the way as soon as you can. And then you go into the activities panel, host a coronation, invite the great and powerful of the realm to witness your ascension to the throne. And then the effects of this is you become a crowned sovereign and you get the anointed sovereign law. They talked about this last week, where you have this law system where you get modifiers if you're uncrowned or if you are crowned. Obviously, this does make you crowned. And then while the coronation exists, factions cannot press demands. Now, this is interesting. I wonder if you could cheese this, like wait to do this, and then as soon as you get close to where a faction might press demands, then have the coronation to prevent them being able to do so. You know, maybe you'll look out, maybe they'll die, maybe at the event they'll like you some more. So I guess there's no reason to delay it. But you could, I think, if you were desperate to, kind of delay it and use it at the very last minute to prevent that from happening. It does make sense, I suppose. Like, whilst you're getting crowned, they're all going to be there anyway, so they wouldn't also have factions. Although, as we've seen, and as we'll see later on, you can have some other bad things happen, so it isn't always a good way to get out of that. You also get some opinion modifiers, prestige and legitimacy, and then a potent oath decision. Again, they're going to talk about that later on. As you can see, costs a lot of money. Now, this is for the King of Scotland, and it's going to cost him 355 gold. That is a lot, but again, as you see later on, the oaths are very powerful, so I guess it kind of makes sense. I'm sure this will be cheaper. They do talk about that. You can kind of change how the event happens. Very similar to hosting a feast or something like that. As you can see, the King of Scotland here, wanting to be crowned, he can only have a regular coronation. They talked about this last week. You can have papal anointment, but that option is only for emperors, so you can't do that as a king. And he's going to be crowned in his capital, St. Johnston. As this site has had previous coronations in the past, this barony boosts the chance of it being successful. And then the middle option is chosen for the ceremony, means he's going to get some bonuses, but obviously if he had enough money for the top option, he would get even better rewards from that. Again, very similar to a feast here. And then as with other activities, you do have these intents, and there are different ones for this content as well. So you can see the first one they're going to talk about here is Exalt the Crown. So this is great if you're in a safe situation. Rather than striving to please the attendees, you will strive towards bonuses for your dynasty and coronation artifacts. I guess you get a new crown or maybe some regalia or something like that. And this will also add on additional rewards for your oath, and they're going to talk about that later on. The next one they're going to show us is Weaken Detractors. This is about getting rid of members from factions, getting them out of those factions, and also lowering the discontent of that faction, so delaying them even further. You can see that in the rewards on the screen. The next one is Embrace Supporters. This will make your friendly vassals like you even further than they currently do. Really make them very loyal to you, and it also gives you some prestige and some other bonuses as well. The last one is Impress Attendees. This is a reliable fallback, especially for those who are facing unpopularity. So this would be very good if you take over as a ruler. Maybe your previous ruler wasn't liked, you have all those negative modifiers. You could try and do this as quick as you can, and this will make people like you more. This will give you bonuses around opinion, legitimacy, cultural acceptance, and this will also boost the chance of this whole event being successful as well. So really like the default option, I think that most of the time you'll choose. So after you've done that, obviously the event starts. Again, very similar to a tournament, a feast, or something like that. You travel to the place you're going to host it, and then the event starts happening. You can see that here, the coronation, the prelude to it happening. Your bishop there that is going to be crowning you, and then some of your vassals. And as you can see, the major supporters, the major detractors, the people that don't like you quite as much, that you are going to try modify during this event. So if you are a member of a culture or a faith that practice coronations involving a priest placing your crown, you'll get the following event, which is an honored position. And you can also choose here to have the crown put on your head by them, or crown yourself and say, hey, I'm the king, I'm going to make myself the king, I don't need a bishop to put the crown on my head. So the ladder practice was surprisingly common in medieval Iberia. This is around crowning yourself. This event obviously can't happen if you're being crowned by the Pope, although that would be funny if you called the Pope in, said, crown me, and then you took it off him, put it on your own head and said, thanks very much for attending, I've done it myself. But, you know, leave me alone, Pope. I've got better things to be doing. So as you can see in that event, the honoured position, as we were talking about, you'll gain opinion with your court chaplain, and your zealot vassals will like you as well. So a bit of a modifier because a holy person is crowning you. I guess if you do it yourself, obviously that won't happen. And then the next thing I'm going to show is a following event. They do say later on there are quite a lot of these events, which would be good, so we're not seeing the same ones over and over. This one is a random event where the host and guests have started to meet and they engage in some politics and discussing the ceremony to happen. This again is very similar to like university, where you're going to have these events, and depending on which options you choose, it's going to boost your magnificence, and that makes it more successful. Or maybe you'll make a friend, make an enemy, make a rival, all those kind of things that play out, and your traits obviously are going to affect you. In this example, there is an option that will go against him being compassionate because it's going to cause some problems for one of his vassals. Throughout the coronation, you will receive petition events from a group of guests that all hold the same intent. Most of these are largely beneficial to your character. The host may choose between accepting the petition or disappointing these petitioners in exchange for some magnificence. So yes, you can choose these cultural acceptance. Again, probably vassals all from one culture coming to you and saying like, hey, will you respect our culture? And you say yes, or you can say no, my culture's better, and then gain some magnificence, which makes the event all in all a bit more rewarding for you. In this example, the king's guests did not have a friendly intent, and those intending to disrupt loyalists confront him in order to strengthen their faction. They are only able to do so because of the unfriendly detractors at the coronation outnumber or outmatch the king's supporters. So as we saw earlier, those supporters and detractors, they're saying here if the detractors are bigger than the supporters, they can actually confront you and try get something out of you. You know, say like, this isn't a friendly situation. Why don't you give us what we want to? Or do you want to risk it? And you can see that in the screenshot. They're coming up to you with this mace or whatever and saying, hey, give us what we want. We outnumber your side. Maybe something worse will happen if you don't give us this. And in the next screenshot, they're going to show us a buff you actually get if you are one of those detracting people that kind of rebel against the king at the coronation. You get this rebel figurehead bonus, night effectiveness plus 20%, advantage in same cultural heritage plus 3, levy size plus 10%. And obviously you're not always going to be the person being crowned, so you might be this vassal being antagonistic and then you get this bonus, and then you could use that to actually overthrow the king afterwards. That is a pretty cool way that works. Again, they're going to talk about how that side of the event works later on in this dev diary. With the focus on impressing everyone during the prelude, the king increased his magnificence up to 63 out of 100 for the beginning of the ceremony. The people in St. Johnson are pleased with the regal spectacle. You can see that in this screenshot. You're traveling down the street here saying, look, I'm the king, how amazing I am, I'm off to be crowned. You get some prestige, you get some bonuses as well, some modifiers, and it also affects the area that you are hosting this in as well. And you can see one of those buffs here, impressed by stately coronation, fort level +1, garrison size +25, development decline -10, and then popular opinion +20. The grand ceremonies made avowed loyalists of the local populace, so I guess they're like so hyped up about you being the king, they're better at defending the place, and also they like you more as well, which is a cool little bonus to get. The next thing they're going to show is appeal to the masses. This is an event where the common people have come to you. You can have different things here happen. It says like the nobility, the clergy, or the common people can come to you and kind of ask you for things, and you can see that here. The common people get a say about their king. Well, they kind of do. I am honoured. You gain some legitimacy and you get some popular opinion modifiers for your counties. So again, making people like you that little bit more. Maybe if you have a rebellion starting, you could get rid of it using this modifier. And then the next screenshot is the actual coronation itself. In this example, they say he actually crowned himself and said, no, bishop, I'm doing this myself, put the crown on. And then the religious side of his realm aren't too pleased about it. You can see in this example, he got 150 prestige. His bishop didn't like him quite as much. And then you can see the other modifiers that happened during the course of this event. Depending on his magnificence score, it looks like he got to like the 3rd tier here. So he got some bonuses out of that. Again, kind of funny. He took the crown and said, I'm doing this myself. Thank you very much. And then after you've been crowned, you actually get like a mini feast by the looks of it, where you can celebrate stuff and then talk about the oaths you might want to do. And again, they're going to talk about that later on as well. So here you can see the feast. With that aside, it is time to celebrate. You'll get a bunch of those options around making friends with people, maybe annoying them, maybe spilling a drink on somebody, all that kind of stuff that does happen in feasts. And then after that's happened, the final phase is where you can still play politics, make some decisions that can affect your rule. And you can see that here, friends everywhere. You get a couple of options. And then on the left-hand side, you can see some of the outcomes. And this is about exalting the crown. This is an option you get to choose. And the top one, you lose some opinion. They're paying you some money, but it does change their contract. The middle option, you get some extra prestige, but they don't like you. And then the last one, you get some cultural acceptance bonuses. Again, nothing too crazy here. And then that King's Intent thing that we just talked about, they're going to show that off as well here. And this is where you can make some other decisions as well. So the trust of other cultures, the faith of my supporters, or my legitimacy and prestige. And those have different outcomes as well. So for the top one, the trust of other cultures, you can see this affects cultural acceptance. Depending on how good you are, the more cultures are affected. For the middle one, the faith one, again, very similar. You get more opinion with faithful characters, with holy people, and this affects more people the better you are at this event. And then the last one, my legitimacy, and this gives you a buff around your legitimacy, and then also everyone that attends, the better you did, the more of them get affected by this and like you that little bit more. So again, at the end, you can kind of specialize it a little bit depending on what you want to do. So hopefully this gives a lot of replayability to this system. It looks like there are different ways this could play out. As we've seen, crown yourself, get your bishop to do it. If you're an emperor, you go to a holy site and the Pope does it for you. And then there's the different events around who likes you, who doesn't, who has attended, what kind of things you're trying to do. It looks like you can focus it towards legitimacy, opinion modifiers, army things, you know, these different areas of the game. It looks like there are ways to kind of specialize it, at least some way, towards getting certain things out of this, depending on what you're trying to do in your campaigns. But with that, guys, that is the end of their run of how this event works. As I've said all the way through this, if you've done a feast, you know roughly how this is going to play out. It uses that system, obviously different rewards, but it does play out kind of similar to those events. The next thing they're going to talk about is what happens if you're a guest, if you're not being crowned, if you're one of the vassals, or obviously if your vassals are attending, what they might get up to as well. And they're going to talk through here the different intents that they have. So earlier on, we went through the ones that the ruler can have. In this example, you can attend and get up to certain things. So guests come not to murder and seduce and all those usual things, although I would be surprised if you can't do that at all. They come to figure out where they stand with this new ruler and find out new opportunities for personal gain, or just be nice and have a good time with the ruler. They really wanted to allow you to play out different ways to attend this and have different kind of interactions with a king, depending on what you're trying to do in your campaigns, but still have the opportunity to lose stress, gain other modifiers, gain opinion modifiers, maybe find a friend or an enemy. So again, as we talked about earlier with the ruler, there are different ways to play this as a vassal. So as you can see in this next screenshot, there's a bunch of these different intents. And the first one they're going to talk about is that bear witness option. This is the default one, they say, and generally just about having a good time and picking up some modifiers. And these modifiers can be around cultural acceptance, piety, or legitimacy. They do say legitimacy is a very good bonus from this. I guess because you're attending and saying, look, I'm seeing you as the king as being my legitimate ruler. So he then sees you as a legitimate duke or whatever below him, something along those lines. The next one is offer support. This is a great choice if you favor the crowned sovereign, want their goodwill, or intend to secure their position. This is a very good option if you're setting up your dynasty in other realms and looking for opportunities to help them succeed. Because yes, I didn't mention before, you do attend this as like neighboring rulers as well. It's not necessarily always your vassals and courtiers. It can be adjacent rulers. As they say here, a very good option for dynasties. You get somebody crowned on another realm, and then you go and try reinforce them, make them more powerful, make them more legitimate, and that will strengthen their ability to rule that place. The next one they're going to show is Advocate Domain. This is only available for vassals, and this is all around going to the king and saying, hey, this is my corner of your realm. I'm a very good ruler. Why don't you give me some bonuses? And this can improve your development, control, and popular opinion within your part of his realm. Really saying like, hey, I'm a good vassal. Why don't you just give me some small bonuses? The next one, however, is called Profess Rights. This is where you're going to the king and saying, I'm a very good vassal and I like you. Why don't you give me a very good reward? They do say here this is a more narrow focused option. You get less of a spread of rewards, but the one reward you get is very good. And you can see the example here. You can get hooks and you can also get vassal contract changes out of your liege without having a hook on them. So really a good way to get some of those, especially if you're not an intrigue character. Although I guess being an intrigue character will help you with this. But it looks like you could be very lucky and get a vassal contract change without having to do some of the work. The next one is Seize Advantages, and this gives you prestige, gold, or claims on titles in or near the host realm. Expect opinion hits though, as this is not the most friendly option. This is going and saying like, hey king, you're not that powerful. Maybe you've got other disloyal people with you. You're going to him, as I said, saying, you're not that powerful. Why don't you give me claims on this other duchy? It does say near the host realms. That's a bit weird. I guess you get claims like outside. I don't know how that works. We'll find out once we get to play it. A little bit different there to the previous ones. The last one here is the least friendly of all the options, Disrupt Loyalists. This is the one they showed off earlier, and this is the path to reducing the magnificence of the coronation and thereby costing the king prestige, legitimacy, and opinion. So yes, you're attending just to cause trouble. This is particularly useful for faction members and those who have rivalries with the king and their supporters. And then the last bit of this is awesome. A terrible foe with this option selected can even critically succeed at it, and they actually get to stage a coup and take over as king, which is insane. That is going to be so fun to do. I presume you have to have a lot of intrigue, a lot of other modifiers, but that would be cool, attending a coronation, and at the end of it, you're just like, no, I am the king. Obviously, any man who has to say he is king is no king at all, but in this case, you're literally saying, give me that crown, I'm in charge, thanks. Why don't you go off and be an adventurer? I rule this realm. That is going to be really fun to play out. It's going to be interesting to see how often that works and how well it is. They do say a warning here though, this intent will create ill will with the sovereign being crowned and for those who love him. So if you're not successful in this, you're probably going to have some bad outcomes. So you're not going to be spamming this, thinking I might take over the realm, why not do this? I suppose you'll do this option if you see the realm is very disloyal. Maybe he's got a lot of factions going on. You think I'll be the figurehead of that, and then try take over the realm. That's going to be so fun to do. I can't wait to do this. Really cool option they've put in there. Next, they're going to go through some of the answers to potential questions we might have. So you can attend the coronation of your spouse and you will be recognized as the consort. You can't be the officiant of a coronation, so you can't be like the bishop. That obviously makes sense, really. You can only attend as a full-grown adult, although rulers can get crowned from the age of 12, which is a bit weird because you would be a regent, but then also crowned. I guess that can happen anyway, but that is how it works at the moment. Although they do say they want waiting for adulthood to be a little bit punishing, but not too punishing. I think it would make more sense if you got crowned when you're an adult, but I guess it kind of makes sense as well. I guess they don't want it to be too punishing, as they say. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, though. Next, they're going to show us one of the guest-facing petition events, the culmination of their intent. In this example, the guest had the advocate domain intent and is the only attending vassal who selected it, and the king here has chosen to accept this option. And you can see the outcome of this. The top option gives you a lot of development growth, actually quite a lot of it. That is really cool. The middle option is around control. You will gain 30 control in your area. And then the last option is all around opinion in their land. So again, he's gone to the king. The king said, yes, okay, I'll do what you're asking me. But you still get to choose 3 options all around development, control, or just opinion modifiers as well. So even as a vassal, like I said, this is going to be really fun to do, I think, especially early on, especially if you've taken over some new lands recently. You have this liege, but you can still get some bonuses out of them, and that can help you in your campaign. And then maybe later on, you'll be powerful enough to take his realm off him, something along those lines. The next event they're going to show is if you're a vassal, and this is a big opportunity to speak out and voice either contempt or support for the king. Being a devoted detractor of the king, though, can lead to rivalries, so do be careful with this. So I guess you can get one-off rivalries, or I wonder if you even get the family rivalries and how they will play out as well. If you're particularly there going, hey, the king sucks, why does anyone like the king? He's going to be like, you're my rival now, I'm going to try kill you. And with that, folks, that's the end of the coronation event, how it plays out, how it works on both sides if you're the king or if you are a vassal. The final thing they're going to talk about are those oaths they've covered previously or kind of hinted towards, and they're going to talk through those now. So oaths are a new mini feature they've added in coronations as part of the middle phase of the activity. You'll be able to choose an oath to open up a special decision and set yourself up for a long-term goal as the crowned ruler. Our aim with these decisions is to give the player more tangible goals to work from and to give their rule more substantial focus in addition to your regular gameplay. So really, as they're saying, a cool addition to the game by the looks of it, giving you these mini goals, deciding what you might want to do on your campaign, maybe giving a bit more of a variety to how you play. I'm sure many of you will choose the same one. Expand the realm that you can see, secure alliances, something along those lines. But you can say greatest hunter, all about hunts, obviously. Provide for the faithful, being more holy, those kind of things as well. Depending on what your character is, if you roleplay the game more than you don't, this would be really fun to do. If you have a very holy character, a zealous character maybe, you would do provide for the faithful. If you are a military character, you would do expand your realm. If you're a stewardship character, shape the realm. That's how I'm going to do this. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm sure there's going to be one that's very obviously the one to choose. And next they're going to show us some of these examples. They're going to go into a bit more detail around the expand the realm one. That's the one you can see on the screen at the moment. And then they're going to cover some of the other ones in a little bit less detail. But let's go through this one first. This is expand the realm. The magnificence of the coronation increases notably, so that helps you with your rewards from the coronation. I swear an oath to expand the realm. The realm needs to have at least 35 instead of 27 counties. needs to be completed in the next 20 years. You can choose between a boon for your capital or de jure drifting some lands into your realm. The rewards are legitimacy, prestige, and expanding the realm. And then also as a bad side, every attending neighboring ruler is threatened by you, so they lose opinion. Of course, that makes sense. If you're there saying like, hey, I'm going to conquer your lands in a minute, they're not going to be too happy with you, are they? So as you can see, many of these have time restrictions and requirements and different rewards. Some of these oaths are a little bit more simplistic. Some of them have a lot more for you to do, like the Conquest Oath we just talked about. That has lots of things going on with it. You'll see later on, some of them aren't quite as much. And then you can see in the decision tab, if you choose this option, expand the realm, once you've hit the requirements, you press this button and then you get the rewards from it. And then to remind you to do this, as you have pledged to do it, in the situation panel, you'll have this highlighted saying Oath, expand the realm, again, to remind you to do this. If you've maybe done it before you've saved, come back to your game a couple of weeks later and forget that you said you'd do this. It does remind you. And then you can see here, expand the realm. You have 20 years to complete this. You will gain 300 legitimacy, 560 prestige, you'll gain expanded the realm, and then your home county will also gain a modifier because you did complete this oath for 25 years, and then you can also see the requirements below that. As we saw earlier, the Kingdom of Bohemia in this example would require 35 counties instead of 25 that they currently have, and everything you see here is obviously going to change depending on what realm you're in, how big you are, I guess how powerful you are, and everything has balancing before this comes out as well. So as you can see, work in progress, that sticker is on everything. Things could change here, but that is roughly how it's going to work, and the bonuses you will get obviously scaled again, depending on how big your realm is. And then as we saw earlier, there are many other options as well. You can see another one here, Foster Enlightenment. I have sworn to my people to bring a new great center of learning, and I shall deliver. Again, you get that legitimacy, the prestige, and then the holding in this example will get a university special building. So does that mean you can build this anywhere? I'm not sure if that location can have a university anyway. But is this a way to get universities anywhere on the map? I guess it might be. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But as you can see, development level needs to be 30, and at least one of these must be true. You need to have the top level of trade. So I guess if you do this, you might need to go to university a few times, get up to that new level. Although one of the legacy tracks allows you to get this anyway, so this could be pretty overpowered on certain dynasties depending on what options you choose. But this is a very cool one. Getting a university building and not having to pay for it is pretty crazy. The next one is strengthen the house. As you can see, this one less exciting. This gives you some stress modifiers, and then also for every legitimate child, you will gain 30 renown. But as you can see, the requirements for this one is only have 7 children. So a very easy one. Maybe if you think you're not going to hit these harder ones, you'll just choose this on a lower character maybe and think, hey, I've only just taken over this realm, so I'm going to pick this easy to hit one, or relatively easy to hit anyway, and then get these modifiers, and that's going to help you as well. The last one they're going to show us here is repent. I've sworn to repent for my sins and shed the weight of my wrongdoing, a burden to my heart and to the realm. Again, you'll get that legitimacy and prestige changes. You'll gain repentance, which is a modifier they're not going to show us. And then the last one, again, very cool. All your sinful traits will be replaced by virtuous traits, which is pretty good. You can get an achievement from this as well, I suppose, because there is an achievement to have 3 virtuous traits. So I guess if you have 3 sinful traits, you'll get 3 virtuous traits. So this is going to be very fun to play out, especially if you're a role player more than just a map painter. You can turn your character into a good person, or as good a person as you get, and then kind of play out from that afterwards. So again, a very fun one. This is good as well if you get a bad character and you have all these sinful traits. It's giving you negative modifiers. You can choose this, try complete it, and then they're going to be seen as a more holy character. You can see the requirements for this though. You need to have some sinful traits, that obviously makes sense, but then all of these next ones have to be true. So this is actually pretty difficult to do. You need to do 4 pilgrimages, which is quite a lot. Your level of devotion needs to be devoted servant, which it would be. After you've done 4 pilgrimages, it would be very hard to not hit that, and having completed 4 of them. And then the last one, the Pope needs to have 50 opinion of you, which again, they probably have from the pilgrimages. So yes, you really have to only do the top one, because the other 2, it would be very hard to do that one and not have those 2 completed as well. Although I guess it would be possible. And with that, that is the end of the dev diary today. Another cool look at this feature. I think there's quite a lot going on here. As I've said all the way through this, a lot of different ways for it to play out. These oaths look really fun. The other ones we haven't seen yet. Again, giving you those like mini achievements almost to do during your campaign run. So you're not just falling into doing the same thing on every character again. I'm sure some of you will do. But for me especially, when I take over a new character, I like to play them as I find them. And this will be fun to kind of focus towards certain ones, see what different things I can get up to. If I'm busy, I'll choose one of the easy ones. If I've not got much going on, I'll pick the harder ones, and then that gives me something to focus on for the next couple of years of my gameplay. So I think these are going to be really fun. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We don't get a release date today. I kind of thought we would do, but no news yet on that. They do say let them know if you have any input on this, because things might change before it comes out. So that makes me think it's not coming out soon. Anyway, we'll find out soon enough, I'm sure. Maybe next week we'll get a release date. I think it is going to be one of these where they drop it on us very quickly. Like they'll just tell us on a Tuesday, hey, it's out next week. So I guess we just got to wait for that to happen. So as always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I cover all the news around Crusader Kings, dev diaries, expansion, DLC news. I also live stream every Tuesday and Thursday, and I also cover EU5 in a very similar manner. If you're not sure what that is, there's plenty of videos on the channel. It is the next big game coming from Paradox, and is the sequel, obviously, to EU4. So if you've enjoyed that game, or if you've ever thought I would enjoy playing EU4, but it looks a little bit old now, EU5 is going to be your kind of thing, especially if you have a good computer. I talked about that in a video yesterday. But anyway, we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.